Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the PPF Football Show with me, Paul. So, today we're going to be talking about a load of stuff, and it's a jam packed show. So, some of the topics that we're going to talk about are the Ireland women's team, and a look back on the Champions League fixtures, and also the fixtures for the upcoming Champions League, Champions League Premier League games. So, hopefully, you'll join me for the show today. Okay, so the first topic that we're going to discuss today is the very tragic death of Papa Bouba Diop on Sunday, and he was only 42. He made 63 appearances for his country, and the most successful being when he played for Senegal in the 2002 World Cup, and the main highlight of that being when they beat France 1-0, of course, who were of course the reigning champions at that tournament. And he spent most of his club career in England for the likes of Fulham, West Ham, Birmingham. Oh, why did I say Birmingham twice? Anyway, Birmingham and Portsmouth, where he won the FA Cup in 2008. It has been reported that Diop had been diagnosed with motor neuron disease, which is obviously a terrible disease, and you'd feel terrible for anyone who has to go through it, but it hasn't been confirmed. It's a terrible death, and let's hope he rests in peace. Moving on to other news, the Irish women's football team played the Germany women's team in Tallaght on Wednesday night. The Irish needed to win in order to have any chance of qualifying for the 2022 European Women's Football Championships. However, it didn't get off to the greatest start for the Irish. Germany raced into a 2-0 lead after 29 minutes with a penalty from Lena McGull and another goal by Tabea Wabsmuth. Forgive me for the terrible pronunciations there. This result means, and of course, the game I haven't even gotten through the game yet. And Ireland, they got back with a penalty from Katie McCabe, but of course Germany sealed the game off with another goal from that striker whose name I cannot pronounce properly. And unfortunately, this means that Ireland haven't qualified for the World Cup, but I'm sure they've done us all proud in what they've done in terms of. And let's hope they inspire Irish women's athletes, particularly in the years to come, and hopefully we can have more success with that in the future. Moving on then to the Champions League, the standout moment from an Irish perspective was most certainly when Caoimhín Kelleher started for Liverpool during the week. And he came in as a late replacement for Alisson, who had a hamstring injury, which is going to leave him out for 2 weeks. So potentially, unless Klopp goes back to Adrian, we could be seeing Kelleher playing a string of games. And I think he's the youngest Liverpool keeper to have a clean sheet in their first game in the Champions League since Chris Kirkland, if you remember him. He was I know him anyway, as the goalkeeper who played for Wigan, and he always used to wear a cap. That was the main reason I know him. And Liverpool actually played really well in this game, and the youth certainly stared for them, with Curtis Jones scoring the only goal of the game in the 58th minute after an error from the Ajax goalie Andre Onana. And of course, we have to point out that the assist for that goal was from another Liverpool youth product, Nico Williams. And this result means that Liverpool have qualified for the knockout rounds with a game to spare, which I'm sure we're all very relieved about. And so that means that they can that clock can just rotate for the last game, which I think is against Midtjylland. In terms of the other big results from the Champions League, I'm not going to go into all of them because I could be here all day if I did that. But the main standout ones were Shakhtar Donetsk completing the double over Real Madrid. Of course, if we remember back one of the first games of the group stage, they beat them 3-2 in Madrid. And this time they beat them 2-0 in Ukraine with goals from Bruno Coutinho, a Brazilian, and Manor Solomon, which I believe is Israeli. And Shakhtar have now climbed above Madrid into second place in their group, behind surprise leaders Borussia Mönchengladbach, led of course by Marco Rosa. And it's been terrible for Madrid. They've only won 4 of their last 7 games in all competitions, and they have to hope they have to win their game in Mönchengladbach next week and hope that Shakhtar slip up when they play Inter Milan on the same night. Which I guess, if you think about it could have been a lot worse for Madrid because Inter have come into good form. Of course, they won the week. They also won during the week as well. So that'll give Madrid a bit of confidence. But they'll certainly get in by the skin of their teeth. But the Spanish press completely, despite the hope that despite the possibility that Real Madrid is still going to go through, like they completely hounded Zidane. So some of the headlines were from Marca saying, "Wow, how you've changed." I really like the sarcasm there. And Mundo Deportivo claiming that Madrid have gone from bad to worse. Zidane has vowed that his team will fight on, but there seems to be a rocky road to recovery for Madrid. And it's been like that for the two big clubs in Spain. Barcelona, I think, find themselves like ninth, and then Madrid are obviously not on top either. I can't remember off the top of my head who's top of La Liga, but it's certainly a much more interesting season than what we've come to expect in the past. And yeah, that leaving Spanish football behind for 1 second, and we'll briefly touch on Chelsea's outclassing of Sevilla in their 4-0 win, which of course the main highlight being Giroud's four goals in the game, and I think he scored a perfect hat-trick in that as well, which is obviously great. And it's great for him considering that he hasn't been favoured in the team as of late, and he's it's good to see him, and he seems like quite a nice guy too. And yeah, he's been and also a really random stat here. He's the first Chelsea player to score 4 goals in a game since his boss Frank Lampard scored 4 in a game in 2010. Obviously in the I'm presuming, it must be in the league. Or it must be in all competitions anyway. And finally, moving on to this weekend, the main attraction is the North London derby, of course, between Spurs and Arsenal. And of course, they've been having contrasting fortunes as of this season. So if we think back to Tottenham, they're obviously top of the league and they're flying, and everyone thinks Mourinho is great again. And then, of course, Arsenal are doing terribly. We had the incident earlier in the week with Pepe getting sent off. Aubameyang has scored barely any goals this season primarily because he's being played out of position. But yeah, I guess the main thing is, it's been a tight game this in the past. Most of these goals have been most of the games have been only differentiate by 1 goal margins. And Tottenham just have a habit of doing enough in this fixture. So I probably think that Mourinho is going to follow that example again and just get the result out, because I don't think he really needs to humiliate Arsenal. But you never know, I could be wrong. In terms of injury doubts, for our Tottenham, we have Lamela, who's obviously still Lamela, Alderweireld, Kane, Reguilon, and Vinicius, the striker. However, Mourinho said that the latter 3, who are Kane, Reguilon, and Vinicius, have a good chance of playing. Arsenal also have injury doubts, including the likes of Thomas Partey, obviously their star central midfielder, who is quite well this year. I haven't really watched Arsenal that much because I have better things to do with my life, but this is what I've heard. And then Pablo Mari and Kolasinac as well are still injury dates for them. And Pepe, of course, as I've mentioned before, is going to miss the game after his red card against Leeds. And if we go back to the last fixture that was played between these two, or even just last season in general, Spurs took 4 points off Arsenal, and the last result was obviously a 2-1 win for Spurs, and are unbeaten in their last 6 Premier League games at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, winning on 4 occasions. 3 of those victories have only come by 1 goal margin. So, as I said, Mourinho's just trying to get through these games. And I guess it's the main talking point about Arsenal, I guess, is just I don't know if I would call it a fall from grace, but Mikel Arteta like the skeptics coming out for Mikel Arteta. He was once held as the savior when he came in, and now he's just, he obviously won the FA Cup, and then he won did he win the Community Shield? I probably should know that. But anyway, he at least won the FA Cup. And, everyone thought he was great. And, he was trying to do the Pep Guardiola way of football. But, of course, he's under some scrutiny now after poor results. Like, of course, they lost 2-1 last week. And only the bottom four sides have scored fewer than Arsenal's total of 10 this season, which is, it's quite harrowing, to be honest, especially with the likes of Aubameyang up front. I could go on, but like the quality of players, I feel Arsenal should be doing a lot better than they are, basically. And it's even worse to think that Aubameyang has actually only scored 1 goal. I probably already mentioned that, but I'm just going to double check. And this is actually Arsenal's worst start to the season in 39 years. And obviously, Arteta would be worried. I would presume Arteta would be worried about this, but he's not actually worried about his own position. He was quoted in the week as saying, "It's something that the day I decided to be a coach, I knew one day that I would be sacked or to leave the football club. I don't know if it's the day after I sign my contract, in a month's time, a year's time, or 6 months' time. I never worry about it. My only concern is getting the best out of the players, giving the best possible service to the club, and becoming better and better. I know, in this profession, one day I'll get to sack or leave, but I don't know when that is going to happen." And certainly, so that kind of just feels like, he's at ease and he's not really worried about things he can't control, which I guess is good for him. All he can do is try his best, I guess. And, there's a lack of on-field leadership. Certainly, I can't think of any leaders at Arsenal in terms of, if I can think of their starting 11, most of the irrelevant players. Let me think. Aubameyang's the captain. Yeah. He's not. I wouldn't really call him a leader. I don't know. I haven't been in the Arsenal dressing room, but there's no. If you get my point, there's no one that springs out to me as like a main leader in the Arsenal team as such, and that's certainly not helped them. And also, I also was reading an article that they have literally just a lack of creativity as well. If you think about it, Saka, I guess you could say, is creative. I haven't looked at his numbers, so I don't know if he is. But if you just think about Arsenal, they're just mediocre. They're certainly not anything special or anything to be sung about. It's just it's a weird time for Arsenal, to say the least. And of course, the one player that they should be focusing on for this game is Harry Kane, who has had an incredible record in the North London derbies, scoring in 9 of the last 11 Premier League games, which I think is extraordinary. And yeah, that's the main fixtures for this week. And of course, just in other news, the Premier League has also agreed a £250 million rescue package with the EFL, the Championship, and the Championship to League 2 for you and me. And I guess that is good because, everyone kind of forgets that while there is money in the Championship, there's not as much money. There's not hundreds of millions being injected into the Championship and League 1 and League 2 every year. And most of the clubs, especially in the Championship, are always running at a loss and overspending in order to try and get to the Premier League and the promised land of riches and money and everything. But I guess it's a good step. It's a good step anyway for all the clubs that are involved, and I'm sure they'll be very willing to get all that money in. Obviously, not everyone will be getting 250 million, but I'm sure, it will certainly help people and clubs, obviously, to survive this pandemic. And even with the introduction of fans this week, it's certainly starting to get better in England. And they've obviously introduced the vaccine in England, which hopefully will be integrated quickly enough, so it will be so fans will be able to get back into the stadium as quickly as possible. Because I don't know if it's the same, if you're the same, if you all are the same, but I certainly believe that it's just better to have crowds in stadiums, even though, like, I can barely remember what it feels like because it's been so long ago. But yeah, if there's any other major topics that you want me to discuss for next week, please let me know in the comments. And yeah, I've been Paul. This has been the PPF Football Show, and I hope you enjoyed it. And please make sure to check out all the other great shows on the Mars FM YouTube channel, whether they're Sophie's Positive Spin, the what was it again? What was the other one? Forgive me now. There's a load of other great shows on there, and there's more coming up. So please make sure to check them out. All right, see you now. Bye.